Have you ever heard of a king so powerful, so feared, that even the church bowed to him, but whose body rotted from the inside out? This isn't a story from fiction. It's not a ghost tale. It's real. It happened to one of the most famous kings in English history, Henry VIII. He ruled with iron hands. He broke away from the Pope. He married 6 times. And in the end, his body decayed in such a disturbing way that people whispered about it for centuries. His corpse leaked black liquid. His coffin may have burst open, and some even claimed dogs licked up the remains. How did this happen? Why did a king's body fall apart like that? Was it disease, a curse, or something worse? Stay with this video until the end, and you'll discover not just how he died, but how the choices he made during life may have sealed his disgusting fate. We'll go back in time, uncover the dark truth, and reveal how a powerful ruler became a horrifying legend. Let's begin. Before we talk about how Henry VIII died, we need to understand how he lived. Because this was not just any man. Henry wasn't a weak king. He was one of the most powerful rulers in Europe. When he became king in 1509, Henry was only 17 years old. He was tall, strong, and handsome. People said he looked like a warrior from an old story. He loved sports, music, and riding horses. He spoke many languages. He could sing and play instruments. He even wrote songs and poems. England was excited to have him. At first, people called him the perfect prince. But Henry didn't stay that way. As the years went on, Henry changed. He became harder, colder, more dangerous. He broke away from the Catholic Church just so he could divorce his first wife. He created the Church of England, making himself the head. He didn't care who disagreed. If you crossed him, you could lose your land or your head. He married 6 times. 2 of his wives ended up executed. Even friends and advisors weren't safe. He had them arrested, tortured, or killed when they got in his way. Henry became a king no one could say no to. But behind all that power, something darker was growing. His body started to break down. His health collapsed. His mood turned violent and cruel. He became angry, paranoid, and bitter. The same man who once danced at royal balls now could barely walk. And yet, he held onto the throne with a death grip. The fall of Henry VIII wasn't sudden. It happened piece by piece, over years of pain, fear, and sickness. What caused the change? Was it a disease? Was it madness? Was it the weight of the crown? Or was it something that had been hiding inside him all along? To find out, we need to follow him through his darkest years, when the great king became a bloated shadow of himself. When his body began to rot, even before he died. As the years passed, the strong, handsome king everyone once admired began to disappear. Henry VIII's body started changing, slowly at first, then all at once. After a jousting accident in 1536, things took a dark turn. He was thrown off his horse and crushed under the weight of his armor. The accident left a deep wound on his leg. It never healed properly. That wound would haunt him for the rest of his life. It often became infected. It oozed pus. The smell was so bad that servants covered their faces when they entered his room. Doctors tried everything, herbs, oils, even cutting it open, but nothing worked. It was like the wound was rotting from the inside. And that was just the beginning. After the accident, Henry stopped exercising. His weight skyrocketed. He became obese. Some say he weighed over 300 pounds. He needed help to move. Special devices were built just to lift him onto his horse or carry him upstairs. His body ached constantly. His legs swelled. He sweated all the time. The ulcers on his legs grew worse. Some days, he couldn't even stand. But it wasn't just his body that was falling apart. Henry's mood changed too. He grew angry, suspicious, paranoid. He shouted at his servants. He believed people were plotting against him. Some say his personality shifted completely, like he wasn't the same man anymore. He stopped trusting his closest friends. Even his own wives weren't safe. And Boleyn, his second wife, was beheaded after Henry accused her of cheating. Some think he made it up. Others think he truly believed it. He started seeing enemies everywhere. People whispered about the king behind closed doors. They said he was cursed, that God was punishing him, that he was no longer fit to rule. but no one dared say it to his face. Henry ruled through fear, but deep inside, he was afraid too. Afraid of death, afraid of sickness, afraid of losing control. He tried to act strong, but his body was breaking down. And the worst part? He knew it. By the time he reached his late 40s, Henry was no longer the golden boy of England. He was heavy, sick, and angry. His legs were covered in sores. His breath smelled foul. His skin looked pale and bloated. The king who once inspired songs and paintings now inspired fear and pity. But his fall wasn't over yet. The final years would be even more disturbing. His body wasn't just aging, it was rotting. By the early 1540s, Henry VIII was a wreck. He was in his 50s now. Every step he took caused pain. His legs were so swollen and infected that some doctors thought the tissue was dying. His leg wounds never closed. They leaked thick, yellow fluid. The smell was unbearable. Sometimes, the pus would soak through the bandages and drip onto the floor. Servants had to burn incense just to stay in the room. But no one dared complain. He was still the king. Doctors didn't know what was wrong. They called it an ill humor of the blood. Today, we might call it chronic infection, gangrene, or even type 2 diabetes. But back then, they had no cure. All they could do was try to drain the wounds and hope for the best. Henry was in constant pain. He couldn't sleep. He became addicted to pain medicine, which likely included opium or other heavy herbs. The drugs dulled the pain, but they also changed his mind. He grew more confused, more angry. He would forget things, then shout at his advisors for lying to him. He believed people were spying on him. Even his own children made him nervous. Every morning, his servants had to carry him from bed. His legs were wrapped in thick cloth. His face looked pale, swollen, and tired. His eyes were dull. The king who once ruled with strength now barely had the strength to rule. But he refused to step down. Even as his health collapsed, Henry held on to power. He signed new laws. He ordered more executions. He made plans for the future, plans he would never live to see. People who saw him during these years said he looked like a dying man. His body was falling apart from the inside. His skin broke open easily. His face was puffy and red. His hands shook when he wrote. His clothes had to be custom-made to fit his size. Some said his waist measured over 54 inches. He had chairs built wider and beds made stronger, just to support his weight. And through it all, the leg sores kept leaking. Every day. Every night. His body was dying, piece by piece. But no one could say it out loud. He was still the king. And speaking the truth could get you killed. Behind the walls of his palace, Henry was rotting. But in public, he wore fine clothes, fake smiles, and heavy crowns. It was a silent, lonely decay. And by the end of 1546, death was closer than ever. It was January 28, 1547. After 38 years on the throne, King Henry VIII was dying. His doctors knew. His servants knew. But no one dared speak the truth. He lay in bed, barely moving. His face was pale. His lips were dry and cracked. He struggled to breathe. Each breath sounded wet and heavy, like his lungs were drowning. His body was swollen. His legs were wrapped in cloth, soaked through with yellow and brown stains. His skin was purple in some places, cold in others. His eyes opened now and then, but he barely spoke. The once mighty king could no longer walk, talk clearly, or even feed himself. He had asked to see a priest, but by the time the priest arrived, Henry couldn't speak. He died shortly after, in the early hours of the morning, surrounded by silence. He was 55 years old. The official cause of death? Many say it was heart failure or kidney failure, but others believe his body had been dying slowly for years. His infections, his size, his pain, all of it had worn him down. But death was not the end of his horror. Even in death, Henry's body continued to decay, faster than anyone expected, because the most shocking part of this story was still to come. After Henry VIII died, something strange happened. No one buried him right away. Royal tradition said a king's body had to lie in state. That meant days of preparation, prayer, and planning. The embalming process was slow. The coffin had to be built. The ceremony had to be arranged. And so, Henry's body sat, still and silent, for days. But his body was already falling apart. The room grew hot. The stench grew strong. Even with herbs and spices packed around the corpse, the smell of decay filled the halls. People whispered about it behind their sleeves. Some refused to go near. His bloated body began to leak black liquid. The fluid seeped through the coffin. It pooled onto the floor. According to one report, the coffin had to be moved, but it was too late. A dark stain followed it. The story goes that as the coffin rested overnight in a chapel, the liquid oozed out, and dogs were seen licking it the next morning. Some said it was a sign from God. Others claimed it was just nature taking over. There's even a legend that his coffin burst open from the gas and pressure inside, that his insides had rotted so fast, the wooden box couldn't hold them. These reports came from real historical sources, people who were there. Chroniclers like Edward Hall and Henry Matcham wrote down what they saw or heard. Some of it may have been exaggerated, but some of it probably wasn't. Even by the standards of the 1500s, this was shocking. Most royal bodies were treated with care, preserved in fine linen, sealed in marble tombs. But Henry's body betrayed him one final time. He had ruled like a god, but now he rotted like a man. The people around him couldn't say it out loud, but they were all thinking the same thing. How could a king die like this? How could the man who had ruled England with fear and fire be reduced to a leaking, bursting corpse? And worse, was this punishment? A curse? A warning? The decay was more than physical. It became a symbol of pride, power, and how both can collapse. So what really caused Henry VIII's body to rot like that? Historians and doctors have tried to answer this question for years. And the truth is, there wasn't just one cause. It was a mix of problems, all working together, dragging him down over time. Let's start with his injury. That jousting accident in 1536 changed everything. He hurt his leg badly. It became infected, over and over again. Some doctors today believe that he may have had chronic ulcers or deep tissue infections, like gangrene. That would explain the smell, the pus, the constant leaking. And in the 1500s, there were no antibiotics, no modern tools, no way to clean a wound properly. So the infection never healed. It just grew worse. Next, there's his weight. By the end of his life, Henry was extremely obese. Some experts believe he may have weighed around 350 to 400 pounds. That kind of weight puts pressure on the heart, the lungs, the liver, and the legs. It makes wounds heal slower. It makes infections spread faster. And then, there's the possibility of diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is a disease where the body struggles to handle sugar. It can lead to poor blood flow, nerve damage, and infections that don't heal. It can also cause sudden changes in mood, eyesight problems, and fatigue, all things Henry showed. Some think he also had a condition called Cushing's syndrome. This happens when the body makes too much of a hormone called cortisol. It can cause weight gain, muscle weakness, and thin skin that breaks easily. People with this disease often bruise and bleed more. Henry had all these symptoms. Others believe he may have had syphilis, a disease that was common in Europe back then. If left untreated, syphilis can cause madness, shaking hands, strange thoughts, and rotting flesh. But there's no clear proof that Henry had it. In the end, it may have been all of these things. He had a damaged leg. He had constant infections. He was very overweight. His organs were failing. And the treatments of the time, leeches, bleeding, herbs, didn't help. They may have made things worse. His body was slowly breaking down from the inside, and no one could stop it. Modern medicine came too late for Henry. But now, by studying the clues, we can see what really happened. His death wasn't just bizarre. It was the result of years of pain, power, and poor health choices. And the worst part? It might have all been preventable. Henry VIII wanted to be remembered forever. He broke away from the Pope so he could have sons. He built massive palaces. He created a whole new church just to make his name last. He wanted to be seen as strong, powerful, eternal. But that's not what people remember most. They remember his 6 wives, his bloody executions, his burning mood swings, and in the end, his rotting body. The king who once shined in golden armor died sick, bloated, and alone. His tomb, built to be grand and glorious, was never finished. He was buried in a plain stone vault in St. George's Chapel. There's no statue, no crown, no golden shrine, just a simple marker shared with Jane Seymour, the one wife who gave him a son. All that power, all that pride, and he was laid to rest in silence. But even death couldn't hide the way he died. Writers talked about the leaking coffin, the bursting body, the smell, the decay. It became part of his story, and maybe that's the greatest twist of all. For a king who controlled his image, who forced the world to see him as he wished, the one thing he couldn't control was his death, or how people would talk about it. Henry ruled with fear. He changed history. He created churches and destroyed families. He shaped a nation. But in the end, he was just a man whose own body turned against him. And that's the legacy he left behind. Not just a king, but a warning. Power, fame, wealth, a throne that ruled over millions. None of it saved Henry VIII from what came at the end. His body decayed. His mind broke. His flesh betrayed him. And in death, the world saw not a great ruler, but a man who could not escape his own choices. For all his pride, for all his control, Henry left behind a story that was more horror than glory. A king whose body rotted alive. And maybe that's the real lesson here. No matter how high you rise, no one escapes what waits in the end. If you found this story strange, disturbing, or even a little sad, there are more like it. History is full of secrets, curses, and forgotten truths. So if you want more tales like this one, subscribe, hit the like button, and drop a comment. Which royal death should we uncover next? Until then, remember, even kings are made of flesh.